Hi guys, welcome back to the show. It's your girl Sarah right here on Relax Radio, and I am super excited to be here because it is the second hour of the show. But don't worry, because I'm here to keep you company all the way until 9 a.m. Share my thoughts, share my opinions with me and with you rather, and let me know what your thoughts and your opinions are as well. Because we're talking about is immunity from COVID jabs actually enough to protect ourselves against the Delta variant? All right. Now, before we actually head into the conversation, I want to very quickly remind you that you can, in fact, be a part of the show. All you need to do is just text me or call me on 078 Share your thoughts, share your opinions, because I would love to hear what you have to say. All right. Now, something else that you can actually do is if you want to stay informed, if you want to stay updated, you can go like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. That way, you can actually make sure that you're always informed and you're always updated about the very latest, and that you're sharing your thoughts and your opinions and your ideas with me. And don't forget to go download our app, but also don't forget to listen into our conversation from wherever you are in the world. Okay. And now let's actually head into our conversation, because we're going to be talking about, is immunity from the COVID jabs enough to protect us against the Delta variant? Now, apparently, fully vaccinated adults can actually harbor virus levels that are as high as unvaccinated people if infected with the Delta variant. All right. So, if they get the Delta variant after they've been vaccinated, the amount of virus levels that are in their body could be as high as people who are unvaccinated. All right. And this is according to an analysis of UK data, which actually supports the idea that hitting the threshold for herd immunity is unlikely. All right. Now, I don't know if you've seen the news, or I don't know if you've ever come across this article as well, but Sandra Pollard actually said that herd immunity is in fact a myth, right? And the truth is, the reason he's actually saying that is because even though we have even though we have vaccination, even though we have a lot of people getting vaccinated and whatnot, it doesn't necessarily mean that simply because they're vaccinated, that they're going to be completely immune to the disease, right? And I feel like this is what people don't understand. They think that when you're immune, or rather when you're vaccinated, that you're completely immune, that you have no chance of getting the disease. But the truth is, you do have a chance of getting the disease. What the vaccination does is, in fact, it lowers the rate in which you can get the disease, right? Which means that if you're unvaccinated, chances are you would probably get COVID-19 if you come in contact with someone else who has COVID-19. However, if you're vaccinated and you come in contact with someone who has COVID-19, then chances are you might get it, and it's only even a small percentage, right? And the other thing that you need to keep in mind is that when you're vaccinated, it actually slows the rate of infection. It slows the spread of the disease, and it also decreases the the possibility of death. Now, the reason for that is, when you're vaccinated, what happens is your body essentially builds up immunity to protect yourself from the virus. All right. So you're basically going to have, okay, to put it very simply, you're basically going to have little soldiers inside your body. Okay. Basically, think of your immune system as an army. All right. And what's going to happen is, if you get COVID, if you get infected with COVID-19, this army is just going to put their walls up and start fighting and say, look, you know what, you can't sort of conquer us, because we're here to protect you. And that's essentially what our immune system does. All right. So what happens when you are vaccinated is that it slows the rate of infection. It also makes sure that if you get COVID, you get a much less severe worse of much less severe condition of it, right? Because if you're unvaccinated, you could get serious COVID, like it could be severe COVID, right? However, if you're vaccinated, what you could get is actually mild COVID, right? However, even though this has been what we know up to now, there is in fact a lot of issues, or there is in fact a lot of there's a lot of doubts and uncertainties with regard to as whether this will be as effective as for the Delta variant. All right. And now this is what the research is about. It's about if the vaccine will protect you from the Delta variant, right? And now there is in fact obviously abundant evidence to show that COVID vaccines in the United Kingdom continue to offer significant protection against hospitalizations and death. All right. But this new analysis that is currently in place actually shows that although you're fully vaccinated, you can still, you will still have, um, you will still have the risk of getting infected, but it's still lower, right? And once you're infected with by the Delta variant, a person can actually carry similar virus levels as unvaccinated people. All right. So the implications of this transmission is obviously still unclear, because this is something that is still being trialed. This is something that they're still finding out, right? But this is what the researchers have cautioned. And they have actually said that, look, you know what? We don't yet know how much transmission can actually happen from people who get COVID-19 after being vaccinated, right? For example, they might actually have high levels of virus, but for shorter periods of time. Or they might be having low levels of the virus for a longer period of time, because we're not exactly sure how exactly this works. And the thing is, something like this, you can't generalize either, because different people's bodies react differently to the virus, right? So because all of that is different, there is still a lot of unknown in that area. But obviously it's important for me to share this research with you, because that way you will understand what exactly or how exactly we've developed in our fight against COVID-19. All right, now make sure you stay tuned, because we're going to head into a small break, and after that we will be back to discuss more of this. But obviously until then, make sure you stay tuned.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh. So that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, got me thinking. You want to stand out. Why do you want to stand out though so much, especially with these kind of shirts when you're riding? There must be a purpose behind it, right?
Well, when you say a purpose, Nick, what I do, I wear the shirts, mainly one because they're nice and bright. So they make me visible, especially if I'm riding on the road.
Okay. Yeah, that's very important, right? Because you want cars, yeah.
Very important. And also, like, people see me in, like, calves, and perhaps I shouldn't be saying this on here, I suppose, but in the bar afterwards.
All right.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh. So that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, you look like a guy who would do.
You know me too well. You know me too well, Nick.
Hi guys, welcome back to the show. It's your girl Sarah right here on Relaks Radio, and I'm super excited to be here because we're having this conversation as to whether the protection that we receive from the COVID jabs is actually enough to protect us against the Delta variant. All right, now I know this might be like material that all anti-vaxxers and people who don't believe in the virus will actually come up and say, "Oh, look, you know what? It doesn't matter if you're vaccinated; it's not going to protect you against the Delta variant, and it doesn't even matter because the virus doesn't exist." But the truth is, this is something that they could potentially use, right? And they would obviously bring it up as well. But don't worry, because I'm here to help you understand what exactly this research means and how exactly it's going to help us. All right, because when they were first manufacturing this vaccine, all right, they didn't think that there would be so many different variants, right? And the truth is, every time you get COVID, you don't get the exact same COVID strain that you got, right? So when you first got COVID, say if you got COVID the first time and you get it again for the second time, it's not the same thing that you're going to get. You're actually going to get a mutated strain of it. You're going to get something different, which is pretty much the same as the flu, right? You get the flu jab, but you can still get the flu because the flu jab that is given is only made for a specific and it's only made for a specific kind of or type of flu, right? However, that doesn't mean it's ineffective against the rest of the flu types that are there, because they still have specific or certain similarities, right? Which is basically what this story is about as well. It might not offer maximum protection against the Delta variant, but it still does offer a certain amount of protection, right? And when I say that, what I mean is that there is in fact a lower risk of, or the speed in which the virus spreads is in fact going to be much less, right? And secondly, it's going to reduce the risk of death. And thirdly, you can actually make sure that if you get COVID-19, the symptoms and the condition that you get is in fact a mild version of COVID-19, and not necessarily the worst, most intensive, most serious, most severe version of COVID-19. All right. So that is how helpful vaccines are. And I know there's a lot of people who don't believe in vaccines, but I do. And I know that they have helped me and my family. And I know so many other people who've come across COVID, who've gotten COVID, but they didn't, and these are people with pre-existing health conditions, right? They have heart conditions, they have diabetes, they have cholesterol. And the thing is, when you have all of these conditions, COVID tends to exacerbate that, and ultimately that ends up in death, right? But a lot of these people who have these conditions and who got vaccinated have actually become like fully cured from COVID-19, and they seem to be doing pretty fine, right? So that's why I keep saying, look, you know what, you need to get vaccinated because it's important. You might not understand how good a vaccine is right now, but definitely with time, you will understand how helpful a vaccine is, right? Now, like I said, there is a lot of evidence that shows that if you get vaccinated, that can actually reduce your risk of death, reduce the rate of infection, and actually lower the deaths that are there as well, right? And like I said, that this is a whole new study that is being conducted. There's still a lot left for them to research and for them to find out as well. But this study, which is yet to be peer reviewed, like I just said, found that vaccine performance is actually waned against Delta, right? And this is in comparison to the previously dominant Alpha variant, all right? But the analysis did not directly investigate whether the lower level of vaccine protection against Delta affected the jab's ability to prevent severe disease, all right? What they basically said was, look, it's not going to make sure that you're completely immune to the Delta variant. If you ever come across the Delta variant, if you come in contact with someone who has the Delta variant, well, yes, you will get it. But that doesn't mean that you're going to get the worst part of the Delta variant, right? Because this analysis was to investigate whether lower level of vaccine protection actually had anything to do with the Delta variant, and not necessarily whether getting a vaccine would make sure that make sure that if you got the Delta variant, it was going to make sure that you weren't going to get the most severe form of COVID-19. All right, so that is what the research is based on. And Dr. Penny Ward, who happens to be one of the doctors in this study, actually said that this low incidence of hospitalization is actually that we can actually see right now suggests that in this respect, at least, vaccines are actually protecting individuals from developing severe COVID. Right. So that is some, positive news for us as well, because if getting the vaccine is preventing us from getting a much more serious, much more terrible condition or much more terrible form of the disease, then we're all pretty much, we at least have a little bit of immunity. And I think at least a little bit of immunity is better than no immunity at all. Okay. So that is why it's important to keep that in mind. Now, the UK findings on peak virus levels after Delta infections in vaccinated people, this was actually echoed from the small study that was cited by the United States Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, right, which is also called the CDC, right? And this happened last month, so that is where they got that this is where they basically got the data from, and not necessarily the data, but this is where they got the inspiration from, if I put it that way. All right. And the agency indicated that these findings had basically underpinned its decision to recommend that people wear masks in some indoor settings, and this was regardless of their vaccination status, right? Especially in areas of substantial or high virus transmission. This was actually how they figured out if people needed to wear their masks and whatnot. All right. Now, make sure you stay tuned, because we're going to head into a small break, and after that we will be back to discuss more of this. But obviously, until then, make sure you stay tuned.
The valuations that you place on an asset are always behind you. It's always in hindsight. It's never in front of you. And that's one of the challenges, right? Because you're always valuing what happened yesterday. And